The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Yeah, the gang's all here for a little bit anyway. Coach Matt's got himself a game that he's got to get to early this week, so we are going to be minus him in the studio. He will join us by phone for the first couple of segments, so don't worry about that. So we're going to do the highlights situation, the two things, a couple of big stories that he really wants to talk about first. And then we'll get into the grand scheme of things. Speaking of which, we're going to have a major compensation package for one guy who got fired a little bit earlier on this year. Got big changes at the top of one of the sanctioning bodies, and that is one of those subjects that Matt really wants to talk about, so we'll talk about that. Silly season continues in IndyCar and Formula E, and it's starting to trickle into NASCAR. That will deal with the other subject that Matt wants to talk about. There is a NASCAR team that is looking towards its future, so it's setting up its hierarchy. Got a former Cup crew chief that finds a new home. All of that and more next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, ready to get this thing underway here. And like I said just a moment ago with Coach Matt, got an early game. Scheduling kind of got played around with a little bit here. He's only going to be able to be with us first couple of segments. I hear that you're on the line there, Matt. How are you this morning so far?
I'm here, and we're trekking northern Calhoun County.
I got you. All right. As we did last year, because all of your games were really very early games, First couple of segments here that you're going to be able to join us. You picked a couple of things that you really wanted to talk about first and foremost here. So that's where we're going to go. And this first story here deals with things happening at the top of NASCAR. Their current head of track oversight, his name is Chip Weil. You may or may not know this if you're the average NASCAR fan. We, Matt and I, know him quite well. He's announced that he's stepping down from that role at the end of the 2025 season. He's leaving NASCAR altogether. His duties are going to be taken over by Ben Kennedy. Now, Wiles worked in the NASCAR ranks for a long time, worked at Bill Davis Racing and Turner Motorsports before he joined NASCAR proper, rose up through the ranks, was named Chief Properties Officer back in 2021. Since then, he's overseen the day-to-day operations and activities of all the NASCAR-owned tracks, the ones that were under the old ISC banner. Daytona, Talladega, Homestead, Miami, Darlington's in there. You know, the list goes on, 13 of them in all.
Right.
He says this: since he took that job, he's regularly spent over 200 days each of those years on the road, and he's leaving in order to be able to spend more time with his family. His kids are now teenagers. He wants to see them go in, get through high school, get into college. He wants to experience those years. Like I said, you and I know him.
Right.
I'm trying to be professional about this, to be real honest with you. There are times when I have had interactions with him and it has been very professional. And then there are times where I would have, I'm throwing professionalism out the window. I would have preferred to throw him off the tower.
The year was 2020 in October. I remember very well. Very, very well. Well, first off, you can't fault the person, no matter who they are. You can't fault the person for wanting to be around their family and their kids more and see their kids grow up. I mean, because being within the sport, it can, from a traveling standpoint, it can be very taxing.
Oh, yeah.
Very taxing.
And let's face it, I mean, 365 days in a year, and you're spending 200 of them. You're spending 2/3 of the year on the road, easy. That's a long time to be away from your family. It really is.
Oh, absolutely it is. Like I said, you can't fault the person for wanting to do that and be with their family more. But from some of the interactions that we've had and the problems that we dealt with, let's just word it that way, happy trails.
Now, I will admit to this. I don't know. I have probably come across Ben Kennedy, but I have not really officially met Ben Kennedy to the point where we've been introduced name to name, if you know what I mean. I don't know this. Have you had any opportunity to run across Ben Kennedy?
A couple of times.
Okay.
A couple of times, and being my few interactions I have had, I will say it this way. Ben has impressed me.
Okay.
He's been nothing but super good to talk to me. And other times that I've interacted with him and seen him, he has actually been on pit road at a couple of facilities, Talladega being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He has been on pit road interacting with fans.
Okay.
And he's the way I look at it this way, and I mean this in every sense of a positive, more in the positive way possible.
Okay.
Ever since he is more interacting with crowds and fans than some of the other ones are. Let's put it that way.
So,
and I think that's a really good thing.
I don't know whether you did or not. Did you watch that documentary about how NASCAR came back to Bowman Gray Stadium?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
So that version of Ben Kennedy is not just for on camera. That's the version of Ben Kennedy that you see with no cameras. It doesn't matter.
I've seen it in real life, yes.
Okay. And to me, that's an important part of it. You can...
It's a very important part.
You can certainly put yourself up into the executive ranks all day long and into the night, and certainly a lot of us would like to be in that situation to a certain extent. There are people who would rather not touch it with a 10-foot pole, and I get that, but there are people that like to work out their way up through the ranks, and we like to think that it wouldn't change us a whole heck of a lot. For Ben Kennedy, it appears that is the truth. I would like to say I could say the same about Chip Weil, but from my experience, and this is mine alone, I'm not going to try and speak for anybody else, but from my experience alone, whatever personable nature he had working his way up through the ranks, he seemed to have lost it once he got that big title.
I can see where you're going with that. I can clearly see where you're going with that.
Now, feel free to disagree with that, but, your personal experience, I can guarantee you, is much the same as mine.
There's no can guarantee. It is guaranteed. The year was 2020 October. That's all we really can say.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, that's when things took a... what are we going to say? It certainly was a sharper left turn than anything we had at Talladega.
Let's just say a nosedive.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. So he's leaving. Again, we wish him the best. Not to get the personal side of things out of the way and put it back on the professional level. Like you said, we fully understand this. You spend the better part of 2/3 of a year away from your family. It takes a toll on you, takes a toll on your family. We get that and wish him the best. Nothing but the best in the future. Hope that he does very, very well. Ben Kennedy, again, to back up what you were talking about, I look forward to actually meeting him on a face-to-face basis because this, like I said a moment ago, I haven't had that honor yet, and I do look forward to that opportunity. And based upon what he's done a lot to kind of mold what we are looking at now within the NASCAR world. And we can criticize some of it. There's no doubt about it. We can look at it and go, we were for a little while. That's probably a better way to put it. Moving much further away from the base of what NASCAR has been and what it grew up into being as you and I were really growing up. Me in the 80s, you much more into the 90s, but you were there in the 80s to a certain extent as well. When we saw NASCAR building up its popularity to explosive levels, to the point where it was rivaling for a little while the likes of college football. We've talked about the big masters of sports here in the United States of America. The NFL's been king for all of my life, pretty much. It took over from Major League Baseball in the 60s and hasn't looked back, and it's still continuing to grow. It's the king of American sports. College football has taken second place because it just followed right along on the coattails with what the National Football League was doing. But the way that NASCAR exploded, and we talked about this before too, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was really IndyCar that was the king of the motorsports world here in this country. And then all of a sudden everything flipped when you had a cable network, a little cable network out of Connecticut called ESPN come in and go, hey, we're begging for programming. And here comes NASCAR going, you want programming? We got programming. And with the help of the burgeoning cable network ESPN, NASCAR just absolutely blew up. Certainly didn't hurt what happened on 1979 at the Daytona 500 either.
Right.
Ever since then, NASCAR has grown and it has gone across the country and done many things outside of its base of the southeastern part of the United States of America. And everyone says that's the biggest problem with NASCAR is they got away from their base. And I'm not going to say it's the biggest problem, but it certainly is up inside, I would say, probably the top 10 in that it does feel like NASCAR has somewhat gotten away from its base. Ben Kennedy has gone back and he has brought back or helped bring back, along with some hints, don't get me wrong, it's not like he did it all by himself, but he has been a major player in getting North Wilkesboro back on the schedule, getting Rockingham back on the schedule, getting Bowman Gray back on the schedule. He is going back and saying we need to remember those roots, even though Bowman Gray is only going to be the Clash. And up until this coming year, 2026, North Wilkesboro was only brought back for an all-star race. And Rockingham's still not back on the Cup schedule yet. It is going back and recognizing, hey, you are the people that built us up into what we are now. Whatever you may think about what we are in the current day, Ben Kennedy's had a significant role in that.
He has, and you sometimes with him having his thumbprint on bringing back to life. Let's put it in the category of bringing back to life these facilities of yesteryear. Let's call it that.
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
And in a way, he's here's how I see it. In a way, he's taking it at a one-step-at-a-time approach. He's getting helping to get each facility back opened up and on stable ground one race at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, each one of them have done so successfully, tenfold in my opinion, with the first event coming back. Wilkesboro, Rockingham, Bowman Gray, places like that. In my opinion, my personal opinion, considering the facilities are a million times different than each other, the Clash at Bowman Gray was more successful race one than the Clash was at the Coliseum.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, wholeheartedly.
Way more.
Yeah, I would.
More successful.
I agree with you on that.
But in a way, it could be him looking at it as this. I need to keep a base sense of what my granddad and great granddad had said. But then again, is it Uncle Jim in his ear too? Hey, you need to let's keep it at our base roots here.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a combination of either Uncle Jim in his ear, like, hey, let's do this right and keep it our base roots, or B, is it he's taking it on his own route and then doing it like, hey, I need to keep this going on my own. You really got to look at it either way.
Sure. And I will ask this question in the fact that, talk about limited exposure to people. I never met Big Bill, certainly. I certainly didn't meet Bill France Jr. And I've only come across Lisa France Kennedy in a very, very passing fashion. I think one time at the Media Center in Talladega, if I remember correctly. It's been a number of years.
Yeah.
But when you think of Ben Kennedy and you think of the fact that he is direct lineage of Big Bill, Bill Jr. through Lisa, does he catch you as more of one of the Bills or more of Jim France?
To be honest with you, some of the things that I've seen and how he does things by keeping it at its base roots, let's call it that way, he's more of Grandpa Bill Jr.
Okay. And that's kind of where I was going with it. I mean, I get it. The Big Bill France kind of ruled with an iron hand to a certain extent, but there were times when he understood, and just about every driver who raced under him will tell you this. If you legitimately had something to say, Big Bill France would listen to you, but otherwise he was going to run NASCAR the way that he felt was the proper way to go. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Bill Jr. seemed to have very much that same mentality from everything that I've ever heard about him as well. He's going to run NASCAR the way his dad taught him to run NASCAR. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. But if you have something to say that makes sense, I will listen. I may not take it and run with it, but I will listen. He listened to guys like Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Darrell Waltrip, Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, the guys that were there, had the influence, and helped build NASCAR into what it became into the 1980s. And
Absolutely.
that was Big Bill, that was Bill Jr. Then we kind of went into Brian, and Brian didn't seem like he was really ready to take over that mantle. And I'm sorry to state that, because he's third generation. You would have felt like he, like his father before him, would have learned what Big Bill was trying to get done, but Brian didn't seem to have it. And
and I want to pivot off of that right there.
Okay, go for it.
In a way, Mike Hilton took that role way better than Brian ever did.
Okay, so Mike Hilton was more of the Bill Jr. than even Brian was.
Absolutely, a million times over. Mike Hilton to me, in the years of Mike Hilton, was over the sport. He had that big Bill Jr. mentality way more than Brian did, in my opinion.
Where did Mike go wrong? Is it stepping away, or was he trying too hard to bridge the gap between where Brian was in trying to expand out NASCAR into places like Chicago and to Southern California, which can, applaud that NASCAR is there, but they don't really embrace it necessarily, if you get my understanding.
No, I see what you're saying. Steve, honestly, it's hard to say. I can't really figure out a point where Mike went wrong, because every interaction I've had with Mike's been nothing but phenomenal. Mike's a great dude.
Oh, yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah, and let me go ahead and state that as well, because, you and I both, on more than one occasion in the old PA Tower at Talladega, could just look right to our left and see him sitting up there. I don't know as I ever saw Brian. If I saw Brian, it might have been one time in all that time that he was the head of NASCAR. I might have seen him one time at Talladega.
Yeah, Mike was always up there.
Yeah.
Mike always was up there. I never recall seeing Brian. I never recall seeing Jim.
Yeah, I can admit to that, too.
I've seen Jim in the infield in the media center.
Okay.
But I've never seen Jim in the tower.
Yeah.
There's only been a couple of times I've seen Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps in the tower.
True.
So
we saw Chip in the tower all the time.
Mike was more hands-on like Big Bill and Bill Jr.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see where Ben comes from, because, again, it does seem like he's taken much more after the Bills than the Bryans and the Jims. He seems to be taken better on that side. And I think in the long run, that's going to be good for NASCAR, because, again, they knew what they wanted when it came to the sport, and they went out there and they did it. They did it the hard way, but they also understood, to your point about what Ben has been seen doing, not only in that documentary about bringing back Bowman Gray, which is the only way that I've seen it, but you noticed it, you saw it live firsthand, him interacting not only on pit road, but talking to the fans in the garage area, in these areas. And when you get to talking to them, you will hear opinion. I mean, you and I both know this. NASCAR fans are not afraid to share their opinion with you. If you are respectable, they're going to be respectful back, even if they have a severe thorn in their side over this, that, or the other subject. That's where Brian, I think, did not succeed, and this is where I think Ben is going to be a major success.
For sure, and I agree with that 1,000,000%, because Ben has now been on both sides of the ball with the sport. Ben drove in Truck Series. Ben was, I'm not going to say majorly, but Ben was fairly successful. I mean, he's a race winner.
Yeah, that's true.
And won in the truck run and won in the Truck Series.
Right.
So Ben gets it.
He gets it from a racer's perspective.
He gets it from both perspectives, absolutely.
Okay, that's probably the better way to put it now that you say it that way. But yeah, the fact that he actually did come up through the racing ranks, he gets that side of it probably better than a whole heck of a lot of other people that have been involved in it. And, and I state that knowing that Chip, for example, did do work along pit road and came up along that side of it, so to speak. But I think Ben's got a better finger on the pulse of what NASCAR really needs and which way it needs to be going.
Yep.
Okay.
He does.
All right. So that's the good news there. Let's take a break here. Then we'll get to your other main subject material. And this is suddenly silly season is starting to work into NASCAR a little bit bigger. It's not really drivers that are affected. I mean, I get it. We heard Connor Zilic is coming in. We know that Daniel Suarez is looking for a ride. But this is affecting crew chiefs. So what we're going to do is we'll take this break. We'll come back. We'll get more into this, because this may be the domino that kicks over silly season really getting going.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
We are back. Coach Matt on the road here, joining us by phone here for this one more segment. And if you remember this last year when he was doing his first year of coaching, knowing that he was only going to be with us for a short period of time, he wanted to get to a couple of big stories that he really found maybe most intriguing for the week. Not that there are not another bunch of big stories he could comment on. I'm sure you could, Matt. But at the same time, these are the ones that you felt were the biggest ones of the week, right?
Yep.
Okay.
For me, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Again, silly season, not really in full force in NASCAR, but sometimes it takes the proper domino to fall. And apparently it wasn't the Daniel Suarez being switched out for Connor Zilisch bit. This might begin this. I don't know. It may take another couple of more moves before we really start to get fully moving here. Again, we're only at the end of September. We still got about a month and a half, give or take, of the 2025 season to go. So maybe things will take a little bit longer to get running here. But this one is pretty big when you stop and think about it, as Kyle Busch gets a new crew chief for next year, Richard Childress Racing. His current crew chief, Randall Burnett, has said he will fill out the remainder of this season and then will leave Richard Childress Racing and head over to Trackhouse Racing, fellow Chevrolet operation, where he's going to take on the role of calling the shots for Connor Zilisch. Burnett has called the shots for Busch, AJ Allmendinger, Tyler Reddick, and others. Been at Richard Childress Racing since the 2020 season. Before that, he was at what is now Hayek Motorsports. When he worked there, it was JTG Dougherty Racing. Things have been rough the last couple of years. You think about it, there was a lot of applause, I guess, may be the best way to put it, a couple of years ago when Kyle Busch was not going to be re-signed by Joe Gibbs Racing, which still seems kind of a strange move for everything that Kyle Busch did over at Joe Gibbs Racing, the wins, the 2 championships, all that stuff. And they said, we can't find a sponsorship for a 2-time champion who's won 50-plus races in the Cup Series for us. Seems odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of odd, because if RCR can find full sponsorship and that car be fully funded for the entire year for RCR, there is absolutely zero excuse whatsoever that JGR could not do the same.
Agreed. So it seemed like that was a fait accompli. So what you got is Randall Burnett leaving after making the initial switch. That first year, right, they came out and it was 3 wins and pretty rapid fire right out of the gate on that year one. And then nothing. And then nothing. They haven't claimed to win since. Every once in a while, it looks like they got speed, but you want to talk about a radically inconsistent 8 car. And part of it's Randall Burnett, part of it's probably Kyle Busch, part of it probably is the whole team as a general rule. So I can't lay all the blame on Randall Burnett, but doesn't some of it have to go there?
It does, because he's the main person to prepare that car.
So,
I'm gonna say it's 60-20-20.
60 Randall Burnett.
60% 60 Randall Burnett, 20 on the driver, 20 on the crew.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going. With his experience, that certainly is going to be a veteran, I'll say, calming influence on the incoming rookie Connor Zilisch. What else does Randall Burnett bring for Connor Zilisch and that team that they might be missing right now with Daniel Suarez?
It's really hard to put my finger on that to know what he could be bringing that could be missing, because Matt Swiderski, he's not a slouch. He's fairly solid. I mean, he's not a slouch, so that makes me wonder, are we about to see a swap? Is Swiderski going to come over to the 8 car and Burnett go to the 87?
Oh, effectively a trade. That'd be an interesting move.
Yeah, it would be, but that's the question mark for me here. Who are they going to pick up? It's not so much as, to me, it's not so much as Randall Burnett going to Trackhouse. To me, it's who is RCR going to pick up to fill that role in.
Well, and then there's this possibility, and I'll just throw this out there in that, Swiderski's one of four, technically, if you want to count Randall Burnett, crew chiefs that are on the roster for Trackhouse as of right now. Swiderski may not be the one to go.
That is true. Swiderski may go to a competition role.
Or he could go and switch to, or he could switch to another car calling the shots, and that crew chief be out.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's word it this way: from a rank standpoint, if anybody, I was to say anybody, they make in-house moves. No pun intended. If they was to make in-house moves, I could see someone like Phil Surgeon going into a competition director role, and maybe Swiderski going over to Chastain's car.
Okay.
Or maybe Steven Duran going over. They playing some crew chief roulette. That may put Phil Surgeon over with Shane Van Gisbergen and put Swiderski over there. Who knows?
Right.
And you can hardly ever tell what's going through Justin Marks' head in one given point.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. So, but this is, to your way of thinking, even though the situation on the 8 car has not been ideal, this is going to be a very good move for Trackhouse Racing and for Connor Zilic to bring Randall Burnett over?
It will be solid.
Solid.
I'll word it that way. It'll be solid.
Okay. I'm not expecting Connor Zilic to do what he has done, for example, this year, but as you look ahead to 2026, what might be your expectation? Now that you know that he has Randall Burnett as a crew chief, what do you think Connor Zilic is capable of in 2026?
I could say top 15, consistent top 15 is realistic.
So that would mean likely a playoff berth.
Likely, yes.
Okay. Solid enough to be a playoff berth. Maybe grab a win, maybe 2?
Yeah, I could say that's realistic for sure. Because, if they bring solid pieces for all 3 cars next year for Trackhouse, the road courses racing will be cinema next year.
Yeah, because now all of a sudden SVG's got some competition and it's within his own team.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, here's the thing. When you and I first heard about this situation at Richard Childress Racing needing a new crew chief for the 8 car, you and I both immediately thought of the exact same guy, and it was Rodney Childers.
Yep.
Rodney Childers was still sitting out there after having left Spire at the early part of the season. Former SHR crew chief, Stuart Haas Racing crew chief on the 4 car for Kevin Harvick and Josh Berry, but that went out the window because shortly after the announcement of Randall Burnett going, all of a sudden we hear word that Rodney Childers gets hired not in the Cup Series, but by Junior Motorsports. They've hired him to become the crew chief of the 1 car for 2026 and beyond, or at least the immediate future, let's put it that way. 1 car next year planned to be split between 2 drivers, the formerly announced Cup Series bound Connor Zilic and Carson Quapple. Both are this year rookie Xfinity Series drivers for that same team. Now, again, Childers was working at Stuart Haas Racing, switched to Spire Motorsports at the beginning of the season, set to call the shots on the 7 car, Justin Haley, but almost as quickly as he got in, he got out. April, he surprised a whole lot of people, including us on this show, when he resigned from that team and left the organization. Neither side really detailed what happened. They only noted that there were, and this is being very polite about it, they said that there were conflicts. In other words, there were people that did not see eye to eye on this situation, and I would think that probably would be crew chief and driver?
Yeah, most of the time that is the case.
Okay.
But, and I said this to you, because Hendrick has his hands so deep as well within Spire of how they run their organization with a driver development ish kind of set up. Let's word it that way.
They do. You're right.
Because Corey Day drops trucks for them. Hendrick sponsors them with Rajah Caruth. Things of that nature.
Right.
It let me know really, really quick it was not a Hendrick problem. It was a Spire problem.
So do you think Childers left on his own accord, or was there's too much for the upper management at Spire to ignore, and they said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and nix this now before it gets worse?
I'm going to say option B on your touch-tone phone right there.
Okay, Spire's decision. Childers, let's face it, successful Cup Series crew chief. He's got 40 wins to his credit, 37 of them coming with Kevin Harvick at the now-defunct Stewart-Haas Racing, along with the 2014 Cup Series championship. Before his time at SHR, he was crew chief at two other now-defunct Cup Series programs, Evernham Motorsports and Michael Waltrip Racing. Remember those kids? Ask your parents. Childers is going to take over the one car from Andrew Overstreet, who's going to be moved into another role within Junior Motorsports. So he's not leaving the organization. He's just stepping away from being the crew chief, despite having worked with Quapple on 6 top 5 and 13 top 10 finishes this year in 27 races. He's also called the shots on the team's star car, that 88 car, did that in 2024. He's been with Junior Motorsports since 2020. The team didn't state exactly what Overstreet was going to be doing. They just said he's going to remain with Junior Motorsports as, in their words, a key player. What does that mean to you?
He will be probably elevated up to the competition department to help run the competition side of things.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me.
All right. And knowing the experience that this gentleman has, talking about Rodney Childers again, what does he bring to this that Andrew Overstreet might not necessarily be able to bring for Quapple? And we'll go ahead and throw it out there since he's going to be part of this. Don't know how many races exactly. They haven't detailed that. But what does he also do for Connor Zilisch?
Stability. I'd say stability would be one. Two, the I'm going to say the veteran voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to say what three could be. Definitely 1 and 2, but it's tough to say what 3 could be.
And I'll ask this now, not that I know that you know, but I'll throw it out there. It is curious to figure out what the relationship between Spire and Trackhouse, or Junior Motorsports and Trackhouse, is, because Connor Zilisch being full-time now and under the tutelage of Randall Burnett, and then he's going to hear another veteran crew chief when he's running his Xfinity Series races and Rodney Childers. One would think that they wouldn't want to be giving him conflicting advice. And I get it that the cars aren't necessarily as similar as they used to be, but at the same time, if you're hearing one thing from one crew chief and something else entirely from another, can you really separate that out based upon just the fact that you're driving a different car?
Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, if that makes sense.
Does it depend upon the driver more, or do you think that this is a situation where they need to make sure that they get a good working relationship between these two guys, Childers and Burnett?
I'm going to say the good working relationship part.
Okay.
Then the driver and crew chief combo can come with time.
Okay. Time will tell. All right, sir. You have a football game that you got to be getting to. Who you playing, by the way?
Playing the Ohatchee Indians today.
All right. Go get him, man. Good luck to you. Hope everything goes well. You'll be back in studio next week, or at least the plan is now for you to be in studio next week, I do believe.
Next week will 100% be via remote, because I will be recovering and freshly back home from radiation treatment.
That's true, too. I forgot about that. You start that on Tuesday, if I remember correctly. You start everything really getting rolling, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, we are certainly praying for the best for that. Good luck with the team today. All the best. We'll be updated, even if just by phone, we'll be updated with you and find out the latest with you next Saturday, okay?
I will do.
All right. Appreciate you so much. Coach Matt there. A lot of things going on with Coach Matt. There ain't no doubt about that. So we appreciate him being able to take the time that he's able to take this morning. We are going to take a break here, and we'll get back into the regular scheme of things and start to run down the rundown, as the case may be. And that means getting you prepared for what happened on the track last weekend and how it sets up for this weekend and all the news of the week. We're just underway right here on this final September edition of CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Get to fly solo for the rest of it. Well, I've done it before. Thank you very much for joining here on the flagship station or on CRN Live on YouTube. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you are on CRN Live on YouTube and you're a first-timer, thank you very much. Comments, got the chat over there, and please subscribe. Love it. Couple of things to deal with when it comes to last week. Let's go ahead and clean that up so that you guys know exactly where the points stand as we head into this weekend. It was a cutoff race in the Truck Series at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Caused for a couple of drivers to lament about what might have been. But it wasn't the case for Corey Heim, driver who has dominated the year, got yet another win. I don't think anybody's really surprised by that. Record-tying 9th win of the year. He claimed the pole, swept both stages, led 124 of the 175 laps, and schooled the field effectively. By the way, 9th win, I noted, was a record tying for one season in the Truck Series. That ties the mark set by Greg Biffle back in 1999. Heim got trailed by Chandler Smith across the line, taking the checkered flag. Lane Riggs third, Gio Ruggiero fourth, Ty Majeski fifth. Rest of your top 10, Grant Enfinger with his new crew chief. Caden Honeycutt, Corey LaJoy, Christian Eckes, Rajah Caruth. Now, despite his second-place finish, Chandler Smith missed moving on to the second round. He needed the win. Came up just short. Jake Garcia also got left behind. So those two are out as the Truck Series now prepares for the round of 8. Not beginning this weekend. Next weekend, I do believe. I haven't looked ahead that far on the schedule, but if I remember right, that's true. Corey Hahn continues to lead the points heading into the round of 8. The 4 that are on the hot seat now, Tyler Ankrum. He's tied technically with Ty Majeski right on the cut line, but Majeski holds the tiebreaker on that. Grant Enfinger is 3 under, Raja Caruth 5 under, Caden Honeycutt 7 under. So with that real tight grouping right there, I'm not going to say anybody's on a real hot seat. There are some warm seats, Caden Honeycutt and Raja Caruth having to jump over 2 drivers, but a lot of things can happen. And when you think about it, they do have a wild card like a Talladega coming up, for example. So, yeah, a lot of stuff can still happen. As for Formula One last weekend, was not the perfect race, but was really close for Max Verstappen. Claimed the pole for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, rolled on to the win. The pole, the win, leading all the laps. 3/4 of a Grand Slam turned out. He did get the fastest lap, so he claimed a Grand Slam. This is the 5th year in a row that Max Verstappen has claimed at least one Grand Slam where he got the win, the pole, led all the laps, and the fastest lap of the race. In the end, Verstappen had a 14-second gap. One would have thought that actually might have been bigger with all that. That gap was, by the way, over the Mercedes of George Russell and the Williams of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz claiming his first ever podium for the Williams team. Rest of your top 10 features rookies Kimi Antonelli and Liam Lawson, then Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, that trade between Lawson and Tsunoda looking worse and worse, isn't it? Lando Norris suffering a high downforce McLaren high-speed course. He claims 7th. Lewis Hamilton 8th, Charles Leclerc 9th, and another rookie, Isaac Hadjar, in 10th. Oscar Piastri, the other McLaren, wrecked out of the race early, but he still holds the point lead over his teammate Norris, 324 to 299. Max Verstappen with the win, he's up to 255, and it's got the McLaren brass saying, hey, we're not going to count Max Verstappen out of the championship race just yet. We'll see. George Russell, Charles Leclerc round out your top 5, 212, 165 points respectively. McLaren did not claim the team title last week. They now hold 623 points to 290 for Mercedes, who jumped over Ferrari for second place. Ferrari's now third at 286, and Red Bull, with Max Verstappen's win and a little bit of help from his friends, Yuki Tsunoda in 6th, I noted, 272 points. So they're now in that battle strongly for second, third, and 4th. Williams is up above 100. They got 101. Then you got Racing Bulls with 72, Aston Martin 62, Sauber 55, Haas holding steady at 44. Veronica. And Alpine sticking with their 20 points on the season so far. Sunday, Cup Series got their first race in the round of 12 in. When it was coming down to the finish, it got into a battle of, in effect, 2 Penske cars. Ryan Blaney, an actual Penske car, the 12 car, holding off Josh Berry and the Wood Brothers number 21, which is the team that's affiliated with Team Penske. Blaney, after claiming the win by just under a second over Berry, complimented the young driver for driving him so cleanly, especially after such a frustrating round of 16 for the 21 car and driver. Blaney ultimately led 116 of the late race's 301 laps. That included the final 39. Said that the final 20 of those were some of the hardest laps he ever had to drive, thanks or no thanks to Josh Berry. Trailing Blaney and Berry were William Byron, so it was a battle of the bees up front. Then Joey Logano and Chase Elliott filling out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Michael McDowell, Ross Chastain, and Chase Briscoe. With the win, Blaney's now guaranteed to move on to the round of 8. I don't think anyone's really surprised by that. William Byron leads all the others at this time. The guys that are on the hot seat show Chase Briscoe is the one sitting over the cut line. 19 over the cut line. Ross Chastain's 19 under, Austin Cindric's 21 under, and the guys who are really not feeling very good about their future right now, the two 23-11 drivers. Tyler Reddick's 25 under and 29 under the cut line is Bubba Wallace. If there is a saving grace for them, foreshadowing, they go to Kansas this week, and 23-11 racing, either with Tyler Reddick or with Bubba Wallace, have traditionally been very good there. But The thing that I was talking about earlier, and the fact that you feel like you're on a really hot seat or a warm seat in the case of the couple of truck drivers who are 5 and 7 points under, the points aren't the real big thing for them. Here, it becomes a bigger situation. 25 and 29 under the cut line is a much bigger deal, especially when you are Tyler Reddick. You got to jump over Cindric and Chastain, or more importantly, if you're Bubba Wallace, you got to jump over not only your teammate, but Cindric and Chastain, and then make up that ground to Chase Briscoe. And Chase Briscoe, despite the fact that he's sitting 8th in points, think about that first round. Think about that round of 16 that Chase Briscoe had, and think about the race that he had last weekend in New Hampshire. He's just consistently ticking off top 10 finishes, if not grabbing a win like he did at Darlington. So Chase Briscoe isn't going to make it easy on him. And then we got the NHRA. It was their turn to take center stage. They, for the first time ever, brought a 4-wide event into the chase for the championship. In Top Fuel at ZMAX Dragway in Charlotte, the 4 making it to the finals: Clay Millican, Doug Kalita, Sean Langdon, and Justin Ashley. Ashley was the first off the light, and he was the first to finish. 3.784 ET at 329.83 miles per hour. Doug Kalita second, Sean Langdon third, Clay Millican fourth. Quartet that made it to the finals in Funny Car: Chad Green, Matt Hagan, Austin Prock, and Daniel Wilkerson. Green red lighted, so sorry about that, Chad. Wilkerson was the first off the light legally, but Prock was in the lead by the 330-foot mark. He rolls to the win, a 3.912 ET at 332.43 miles per hour. Hagan settles for runner-up. Wilkerson drifts back to third as Green was DQ'd, again, because of red lighting at the beginning. In Pro Stock Car, the finals featured Dallas Green, Aaron Stanfield, Erica Enders, and Greg Anderson. Every single one of them had really, really good reaction times. The thing about it is, the best, Glenn, 0.016. Nice light. Rolls to the win, 6.554 ET, 209.95 miles per hour. Greg Anderson, your runner-up. Erica Enders then. Aaron Stanfield suffered a severe tire shake. He had to shut it down. He ends up finishing fourth. Pro Stock Motorcycles Quartet came down to this 4. You might notice a name missing. The people who made it: Richard Gadsden, Angie Smith, Gianna Evaristo, and Matt Smith. No Gage Herrera. Okay. Gadsden with a reaction time of 0.015. He grabs the win. Matt Smith claims runner-up. Angie Smith, Gianna Evaristo third and fourth. Gadsden a lapse time of 6.803 seconds at 199.55 miles per hour. With the results, Doug Kalita takes over the Top Fuel points lead. He's up 38 on Justin Ashley. Sean Langdon's now 59 back in third. And Tony Stewart, the guy who was leading going into the chase for the championship, is now fourth, 68 back. Clay Millican, 95 down. He's in fifth. In Funny Car, Austin Prock is 79 up on Matt Hagan, 94 over Ron Capps. Jack Beckman is 98 down, and Paul Lee starting to need binoculars to see the leader. He's 127 back. Dallas Glenn, your Pro Stock Car points leader, he's 79 up on Greg Anderson, and then everybody else definitely needs binoculars to see, because Aaron Stanfield in third is 172 down. 193 back is Matt Hartford, and Corey Reed's 195 back. Did not get the motorcycle points, and I apologize for that. So here's your slate for this weekend. It begins with the Xfinity Series. They're set to run the Kansas Lottery 300 at Kansas Speedway. This is the race that's going to air on the MRN network and CW network on TV. It'll start this afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Throughout the day, the IHRA running the Outlaw Nitro Series latest event, this one at Dragway 42 in West Salem, Ohio. If you are of a mind, you can catch all the action on the IHRA TV. Easy for me to say, on YouTube, and it actually started probably right about now. You can wait another hour. All the good stuff starts this afternoon, really. Cup Series will kick off Sunday's racing with the Hollywood Casino 400 presented by ESPN Bet. This is at Kansas. Going to be on USA and MRN Radio, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. And the NHRA is back in action. They go from Charlotte to St. Louis for this weekend's Midwest Nationals. All the action will show up on Fox Sports 1. Starts 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Truthfully, barring weather, the NHRA should probably finish first. I'll just note that. Craftsman Truck Series, Formula One are both off this weekend. By the way, I've checked the weather out in the Midwest. Looks pretty good. I don't think you're going to have to worry about it. So like I said, I think the NHRA will finish first, but it won't be by much. It'll be about the same time. So if you got like side-by-side or a quad or something like that, and you can choose whichever sports you want to put on there, you could even include the NFL games that are going on in a couple of boxes and catch the Cup Series and NHRA in 2 other boxes. Hey, this is a great time of year, man. Major League Baseball's getting ready to be down to the regular season. NFL, college football in full swing, and we've got racing, and they are in their championship runs. Whew. Man, if you're a sports fan, this is a good time, man. I'm here to tell you. When we come back, we're going to get into the news of the day or the week. And arguably, and I know that Matt didn't choose this for either one of his 2 topics, but arguably one of the biggest stories was Christian Horner being fired by Red Bull. And this brought about a severe compensation package. We'll detail it next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2 getting underway here. I am Steve West. Coach Matt is, well, coaching. Had an early game. They did a change to his schedule, so that's why. Producer John is on CRN Live on YouTube, and of course we're live there and on our flagship station in East Central Alabama. Thank you for joining us. Let's talk a little Formula One here, where ESPN reported that sources told them, and this got backed up by others as the week went along, that Christian Horner and Red Bull came to terms on a contract buyout. Now, of course, this is in relationship to his being let go earlier on this year in something of a surprise move, but I think we kind of saw it coming as the last couple of years have really been kind of rocky for Christian Horner. Accusations of improper conduct and things like that were going on. So they let him go. Now, they had to come to a contract buyout because Horner was under contract with them through the 2030 season. So the buyout was indeed expected to be big, and it was. The equivalent of $100 million. There are Auburn coaches who would like to have that deal. Sorry if you're an Auburn fan. But let's face it, they're spending a lot of money on coaches that ain't coaching at Auburn anymore. Now they got this situation at Red Bull. Thing is, it appears the buyout's actually less than what the contract called for over the run if he were to have stayed there. So that's how much he was getting paid to be the team principal at Red Bull. There's a concession, by the way, in there. He probably accepted less money. I mean, $100 million is nothing to sneeze at, but he probably accepted less than what the contract called for as a buyout at this point in time in the contract so that he could shorten the gardening period, as the Europeans call it. We would call it sitting on a no-compete clause here in the United States. He wants to get back into this and maybe can for the 2026 season. Now, coming back as a team principal may or may not be in the cards. The two teams that he was most linked to, Ferrari and Cadillac, have said no in varying ways. Ferrari went so far as to extend the contract of current team principal Fred Vasseur shortly after the news of the Horner-Red Bull split got released, so that became the de facto no. Cadillac just flatly came out and said Horner wasn't going to be with them in any capacity. They have a team boss. It's Graham Loudon. And he's done pretty good so far. We'll see once the rubber hits the road literally next year, but still, so far, things look to be pretty good over there. Horner has been linked, by the way, to a group that might be working to get into Alpine. Not necessarily as a team principal. He might be looking as a part owner. He's working with a group that's looking to buy a rather significant stake into the Alpine team. Wonder how much Renault is going to be willing to let go of it. That's the question. What's the percentage? Meantime, McLaren, as I noted during the recap, missed out on clinching the Constructors' Cup in Baku. The watch is on, basically. They are so far out in front that it seems like an all-but-done deal. So here we go. Next week. This week is an off week for Formula One. Next week is the Singapore Grand Prix. It does take a little while to get from Baku to Singapore, so they give them a week. How can McLaren clinch it there, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you did. First things first, if there happened to be a tie at the end of the season, don't worry about that. McLaren holds the tiebreaker, so toss that out. Mercedes, as I noted, overtook Ferrari for second place in the standings, as we noted that in the race recap as well. So what does McLaren need to do in Singapore to clinch the Constructors' Cup title? They need to outscore Mercedes by 13 points. Effectively, a podium finish by either Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri should be enough. Another way to look at it, McLaren becomes the champions after the Singapore race if, number one, Mercedes doesn't outscore them by 31 or more points, Ferrari doesn't outscore them by 35 or more points. Mathematically, Red Bull, they've been eliminated. They can't mathematically claim the title. Only McLaren, I think they're the de facto champion. I just don't see them stumbling so bad as to be, for all intents and purposes, scoreless for the remainder of the year. But just because mathematically it still happens, we have to do it. It's kind of like this point in the time of the year, you talk about teams with their magic number. You know, how many more games do you need to win or have your main competition lose before you actually clinch a playoff spot? This is that same thing. This was a pretty cool story. Cool story, I got to admit. We haven't seen much of Romain Grosjean this year. The former F1 and Indycar driver is basically kind of deciding on his future, and it may or may not involve being a driver in any particular car. In the meantime, he was able to go back to his past, got a chance to get behind the wheel. And Grosjean's last time in an F1 car was for Haas F1 at the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, the second to last race of that year. This was a race where he got involved in such a violent crash, it cracked the car in half, and it effectively exploded. And the cockpit was on fire, and he was able to work his way out through the halo not the way that you would normally expect, but through the side, basically, of the halo to be able to get out of the car, but it caused burns to his hands. And but like I said, he was able to get himself out. He has since healed. He got, again, a couple of rides in Indycar. But this year, he's been kind of sidelined for the most part. And again, hasn't been in a Formula One car since that fateful 2020 day. But they had a special test that took place in the Mugello course in Italy just yesterday, where he got the chance to drive the VF23. This is the Haas F1 racer from 2023 in what they call a TPC, or a test of a previous car. This was a Pirelli tire test, in other words. And they do this with allowing the teams to bring out a previous car so that even though it's Romain Grosjean, we'll show you here with his former race engineer and current F1 team principal, Io Komatsu, on CRN Live on YouTube here. This is so they can't grab any real good information that might be able to be transferred to the current car, because the 2025 car is radically different from the 2023 car. Haas F1 wasn't the only team that was there. Ferrari was there too. I'll get back to that in a moment. Grosjean, you think about this. Grosjean was the first ever driver recruited by Gene Haas to come over to Haas F1 way back in 2016, back 9 years ago. The current Haas F1 team principal, Io Komatsu, again, was his race engineer at that time. Grosjean said of the opportunity to get back in the F1 car, even if just for practicing it, quote, to say I'm excited to get back behind the wheel of an F1 car would be naturally an understatement. I can't really believe that it's almost been 5 years, but to be able to come back, have this outing with my old team is truly something special. My kids had designed a helmet for what was meant to be my final Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi in 2020. Didn't get to wear it. I'm last going to be able to give it a go in an F1 car on Friday. Again, that was officially yesterday. A TPC test is sanctioned by F1, again, on a limited basis. You can do this up to 20 days per year with a 1,000 kilometer limit for current F1 drivers, but most of the time you get former F1 drivers or drivers from other series that are put into the car to give them a feel of what it's like to experience an F1 car, even again if it's not a current one. And it's funny because not only did Haas F1 bring back Romain Grosjean, they, for part of that test as well, grabbed former IndyCar driver James Hinchcliffe, who's also become a current part-time F1 commentator. We'll probably see some of him as they begin their North American swing in Texas and Mexico and probably Vegas. I don't know about Brazil, but maybe when they come over here. But he also got the chance to get into the VF23 and get to check that out as well. Really, really cool story. There's some video of it if you are on social media and you can follow, or you do follow, the Haas, MoneyGram Haas F1 team. You can watch some of the video of it with them welcoming back Romain Grosjean with open arms. It was really, really cool thing. On the other hand, I mentioned that Ferrari was supposed to join in as well, and Lewis Hamilton was actually supposed to be part of that. He was going to drive, I think, a 2022 or 2023. I can't remember which year it was. But he had to remove himself from it. He withdrew to participating because of his dog. His dog is named Roscoe, Bulldog. Went into a coma. Got a fairly sad picture up there on CRN Live on YouTube if you're over there. Roscoe's a 12-year-old bulldog. Hamilton posted a picture of him with the pup on social media and gave an update. He said, Roscoe caught pneumonia again. Apparently, this is the second time this year for the pup to be struggling with that. And he was struggling to breathe. Lewis admitted Roscoe was admitted to the hospital, as I continue the quote, sedated to calm him while they did checks on him. And during that process, his heart stopped. The veterinarians were able to get his heartbeat back, and now he's in a coma. We don't know whether he's going to wake up from this, but I am by his side, and I want to thank you for all your prayers and support. They said they're going to try and wake up Roscoe today as we air live on this Saturday, the 27th. But Hamilton noted there's no guarantee of it. And again, this is... it's a sad story. I mean, there's no doubt about it. My wife and I have had dogs ever since we got together. Going on 25 years ago now. Producer John knows all about having pets in his life. Coach Matt does too. And I'm sure that many of you listeners, viewers do as well. This is certainly a sad time, and it works out. If there is a silver lining to a very, very dark cloud, it's the fact that Formula One is off this week so that Lewis Hamilton can be with Roscoe in this particular case. Hate to hear it. Hope everything goes well. If you saw the pre-race ceremonies, let's take a much lighter note here before we wrap up things in Formula One. If you tuned in, and a lot of people did, there were a record number for ESPN in the United States for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in their time of bringing Sky Sports coverage of Formula One over here to the United States. In all those years of airing the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and every single year that it's been on ABC ESPN, it's been on ESPN. And last week, a record number of viewers tuned in to ESPN for that particular race. So that's pretty cool news. But if you happen to be there for the pre-race ceremonies at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, you might have noted the Sky Sports cameras, remember they provide all that coverage for the broadcast here in the U.S., catching several of the F1 drivers trying to contain their laughter during the performance of the Azerbaijan national anthem. And it's not that the Azerbaijan national anthem is necessarily funny in and of itself. It's the fact that if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube right now, you can see the picture that it was actually being performed by a bunch of kids. Young kids. I'm not talking about a high school aged choir who's got training and they have their teacher / conductor that's, making sure that all the different singers do what they're supposed to do, from the sopranos to the tenors and the altos and the basses, right? No, these are kids looking to be 5-ish years old. Some kids are going to be extremely shy and they're going to basically mouth the words and probably not sing very loud. Other kids are going to do it at the absolute top of their voice. And that was what happened. The picture that you can see there is George Russell, Lando Norris specifically in the middle and on the right-hand side, stifling their laughter as the kid that's right in between them, if you're looking at the picture, he's the one that's belting it out as loud as he possibly can. Among others who were amused, Kimi Antonelli, Carlos Sainz. Also saw a picture of Lewis Hamilton finding and then pulling out his phone to get some video of it. Man, he was just yelling it at the top of his lungs. You gotta have a little fun with that, right? Nobody was criticizing the kid afterward, and I'm not criticizing him either. I'm just noting. Fans posted on social media things like, quote, "Ain't seen anyone more passionate than him. He's taking his role seriously. Good on him." Another one said, "It was a fabulous national anthem, real rousing song. I was even singing at the end. Best one I've heard. Wonderful. Well done for that kid." And another one, a third person, posted this, quote, "See, that's actually very adorable." And the cool part about that is the fact that, and you may or may not have experienced it yourself, whether you are just involved in a chat, whether you're in a conversation on X or Facebook or Instagram or whatever other social media it is that you prefer to use, there's something called internet bravery. In the fact that I can't see your face, you can't see mine, except for maybe a profile picture. And it tends to give somebody the bravery to say things that if that person and I'll say that they were, saying stuff to me online, they wouldn't necessarily say it if we were face to face. But because of the fact that I don't know exactly where they are, and they don't really know exactly where I am at any one particular point in time, there's an anonymity there. And that anonymity gives them a certain amount of courage that they use to say things, like I said, that they wouldn't say on a regular basis if we happen to be face to face. So the fact that that kid got complimented for just screaming out at the top of his lungs, not necessarily on key all the time, the fact that they were that cool about it is refreshing. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't people who had fun at his expense or just absolutely ran the kid into the ground. There probably were. I didn't look that deep into it. I just like the fact that there are people who complimented on him, because there are just not enough of those people around. And that's the sad part about it. Internet can be a good thing. Social media can be a good thing. But unfortunately, it's not always used that way. And let's hope that we can fix that as we go on through the time. In the meantime, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears. We'll go into NASCAR to talk about the playoff system. Plus, there was an interesting conversation, speaking of social media, about what NASCAR maybe should do.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Rolling through hour 2 of this weekend's particular show. Final show of September. Wow, already got that far. To get older, time flies. Just marvel about it. It's an old guy's thing to do. It's what we do. Talking a little NASCAR here. NASCAR considering making changes to the playoff system, most specifically the Cup side of things. It's been kind of talked about most of the year, actually. They formed a committee actually back in February, started to get comments on what some people liked and what they didn't about the current format. And it's not perfect. It's made by humans, of course. So, yeah, it could be improved. How? It depends on who you're talking to. Commentary comeback has been overwhelmingly, according to a report in The Athletic, in favor of keeping a playoff system. Only one person seriously stating that the playoff system needed to be scrapped. There's Mark Martin out there as well, who thinks that it needs to go back to the point where you just kill it totally and you do 36 races and you could end up like McLaren with, 5, 6, 7 races to go and have a champion. But it didn't stop several committee members from siding with that one person. And if that were to come about, it would bring about a pretty big turnaround, because if you think about it, that'd take us back to the system that, it was used from the beginnings of NASCAR all the way up to 2003, where, again, all teams are technically around and eligible. use the term loosely, eligible for all 36 points races. But we've noticed this, for example, about the Gen 7 car. The Gen 7 car was such a radical change from the Gen 6 or anything that came before it that it leveled the playing field, if you understand my way of looking at it. Nobody had an advantage over anybody else. But it was, and we knew this, only a matter of time before the teams that had the most resources available, your Hendricks, your Penske's, your Gibbs, one thought Stuart Haas, but turned out they didn't. But it was only a matter of time before those teams that had the most resources available to them would suddenly be able to go out there and figure out how to get this car working best for them. And to do it at the right point. Witness, for example, the last 3 titles being won by Team Penske at Phoenix. 2 from Joey Logano, 1 from Ryan Blaney, and Ryan Blaney's already into the round of 8 now. They've figured out the car to a certain enough extent to the point where the cream is rising to the top once again. And if you think that scrapping the playoff system and kind of resetting the points back to what they do in each round is imperfect, I would agree. It is imperfect. But at the same time, it's keeping anybody from running away with it. And there is the possibility that it could happen. I'm not saying it was going to happen this year. I'm not saying that it would happen even next year. But at some point in time down the road, there's going to be a year, kind of like what we saw Max Verstappen a couple of years ago, where he just so dominates the year that it takes all the drama out of it. So there is no perfect way of figuring out a NASCAR champion. I don't know what's going to happen. I keep hearing basically they are going to maybe flip how the playoffs are done, and the round of 16 might actually only be 1 race, and that the championship round will be a best of 3 between the 4 drivers. Again, all of this is up in the air and suspect. Until they actually come out and state it, nobody knows. But on top of that, if you look at the ratings, they're dropping a bit. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The most obvious one is the fact that it's on cable. NBC Sports has this portion of the schedule, the final 14 races of the year, for 14 points races of the year. As we noted when we detailed this schedule about a year ago now, maybe a little over, the USA Network cable has 10 of the 14 races. Only 4 of those races are going to show up on NBC. Despite the fact that NBC does not have NFL to deal with. Go back to last weekend. New Hampshire. Cup Series race is on USA. Middle of the day. Has to be. New Hampshire doesn't have lights. What was NBC showing up against the Cup Series race on USA? NBC was showing the IMSA race. Now, I'm not denigrating IMSA by any stretch of the imagination. Been to the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Great experience. If you get the opportunity to do it, highly recommend it. But if you remember us last year showing you the television ratings for the entire 2024 year of all series, regardless of what network, over the air or cable that it showed up on, you noted that out of the top 50 highest rated races, 45 plus were NASCAR. And all 36 Cup Series races were in that top 50. I'll give you a clue. There wasn't a single IMSA race that showed up in the top 50. Nowhere close. So why? And this is a rhetorical question because I personally don't have the answer. And I don't have the hotline to call up the programming department of NBC Sports and find out what in the heck is going through their heads. But can anybody tell me why NBC decided to put the Cup Series on the cable network, despite the fact that it gets generally much higher ratings than IMSA does? Bueller? Anybody? Nobody. I'm not sure NBC could state what the actual reasoning is behind it. And if they could come up with a reason, I could probably shoot holes in that theory within 5 seconds. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. But on top of that, there was a person that said that this time of the year needs to be scrapped. And this was on social media. And again, social media is just one of those things that's out there. But this has created a bit of a stir. If you are a SiriusXM subscriber and you listen to the NASCAR channel any at all, you might have heard Danielle and Larry talking about it on the midday show. In that somebody said that NASCAR needs to shy away from competition at all with the kings of American sports in football. And they need to be done with their schedule about the same time IndyCar is. Now, if you remember, we've talked about the IndyCar schedule here, and me personally, and Matt as well. I'm not going to speak for John, but I think John's pretty much in agreement as well. If he has an opinion on it at all, he may not. So again, I'm not going to speak for him. But Matt and I are of the opinion that the IndyCar schedule is too short. 17 races long, and it ends next year on Labor Day weekend. Now, yes, it does eliminate the idea of having them competing against the likes of the National Football League and college football. But that's a long off season to go from September to late February or early March. And now you're talking about trying to figure out how to shove NASCAR into an area where they begin in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, put the Daytona 500 in the middle there, and then cram 36 races in from that point in early February, early to mid-February, to Labor Day? Because this person didn't say cut out the number of races. They said in the summertime, maybe we could run races on Saturday night or Sunday and then run a Wednesday night race because nobody has things on Wednesday. Sorry, Major League Baseball does, but that's another point entirely. And then turn around and run the next weekend. You've got people complaining about it right now. You got people like Chip Weil, who we talked about at the beginning of the race, saying, I'm spending 200 days on the road right now. And you want to have these guys go from a race on weekend, then middle of the week, and then the next weekend, and you want to do that for 9 straight weeks? That's massive burnout. There's an old adage in TV and radio, and it says that while you may have technically competitors in your particular format, you're not worried about what they do. Let them do what they do, you do what you do. Because if you play reaction to what they do, you're always going to be chasing. You be you. You do what you do. NASCAR is vastly different from the National Football League. It's massively different from NCAA football or Major League Baseball or the NBA or the NHL or the WNBA or all the other sports that are either in season right now or getting into season right now. Those people who want to watch racing are going to find it and watch racing. I'm going to look it up. If you're listening to this show or watching it on CRN Live on YouTube, you're going to go look it up. But that doesn't mean that you're going to ignore it. I am wearing, yes, it says CRN on it, but I'm wearing, for those of you listening on the radio, I'm wearing a football jersey that I had made for this crew here on this show a few years ago. Just because I was looking for something different and looking for a Christmas present. And it seems appropriate to wear it at this point in time of the year because, yes, it's football season, it's fall. But it's still basically racing related because it's about this show. Sports can coexist. Major League Baseball's not shying away. They're getting ready to run into their playoffs right now. They're not trying to shorten the season to avoid the National Football League. They're going to run the World Series whether the National Football League's playing or not. The NBA is about to kick up their season. They couldn't care less that the National Football League is in season. Same with the National Hockey League. Both of those leagues are about to kick up their seasons here within the next few weeks. The WNBA is right now in their playoffs. Like I said, Major League Baseball's in there. NASCAR, don't listen. Your ratings will go down. Your ratings will fluctuate. It happens. People drift from here, there, and go here and do this. You go out NASCAR. You go out Formula One. You go out NHRA or whatever other series is still running right now, and you just put on the best product you can. And don't worry about the other leagues. And please ignore that guy on Twitter. For love. And yes, I still call it Twitter. Let's see. Talked about Chip Weil. Here we go. Oh, by the way, that Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs thing at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Matt and I talked about that in length on this week's Crossed Flags. It's available right now on YouTube. Search CRN Live if you are listening on the radio, or search the same on Spotify. You can listen to the audio of it. We talked about it a lot. Cowlick Racing has announced that in preparation for getting their Truck Series program up and running with the return of the Ram brand in 2026, they have promoted Chris Rice to the position of Chief Executive Officer. He was the president. Now he's the CEO. Rice has been with the Cowlick team since they started back in 2016. Before that, he worked with other teams, started working on pit road. He's worked his way up through the ranks. Rice was actually the driving force behind Cowlick getting into the Craftsman Truck Series with the return of the Ram brand. And let's face it, the Ram brand hasn't raced in NASCAR backed by the company since 2013. Matt Cowlick said of Rice, quote, "Chris, he's the real deal. From his early days on pit road to president and now CEO of Cowlick Racing, his journey reflects the hard work, dedication, and passion that define the sport. Chris was with me from the very beginning, helping build Cowlick Racing from the ground up, and his leadership has been instrumental in shaping the culture and the success of our team. I'm proud to call him a partner, a leader, and a friend. In his role, Rice will oversee all the aspects of Cowlick Racing's competition and business side, so really that's where the CEO part comes in. He's been, as the president, overseeing the competition side. Now he gets into the business side of things. He said of his new title, quote, "I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity and Matt's trust in me. Our goal has been to create something special here, not just wins on the track, but a culture where people love to come to work every day. Now with our partnership with Ram and the opportunity to continue to grow in 2026, the future, never been brighter for Cowlick Racing." And I tend to believe that's true. They're going to learn a lot. The funny thing is that it appears that they're going to do some adjustments, not necessarily to the Cup side, but maybe to the Xfinity Series side. We're not sure 100% there, but it does appear like they're getting ready to do that stepping stone bit that a lot of these other teams that are involved in all three of those top series in some way, shape, or form are getting ready to do. And this is a good thing for them because it helps them develop talent from the Truck Series level through the Xfinity into the Cup Series. And I hope that it does indeed do good stuff for them. We were just talking about Stewart-Haas Racing just a moment ago. That team that we used to call the other SHR, Sam Hunt Racing, they now have a new official technology partner. How does that work, you ask? Well, the company is called the Trimec Group. Trimec is, they're not going to get real prominent placement on the race cars or uniforms, but they are going to help the team in something called metrology. Metrology is a scientific study of measurements. I didn't even know that was a word. It should help the crew chiefs, the engineers, and the mechanics within Sam Hunt Racing because they're kind of the little guy, the little engine that could. They've gone out there and they've done some really, really good things over the course of time, although they are not necessarily 100% consistent in their performance. This might actually help them out on that. Partnership begins immediately this week. That Trimec logo is going to be featured on the lower front fender of any Sam Hunt Racing car beginning at Kansas and going into next year. And like I said, it'll show up on their uniforms as well. The real situation, I think, will be behind the scenes. So we'll see whether or not this does indeed help them. Then there's SS Greenlight Racing, who they kind of need a little bit of help. Not really sure that this is it, other than the fact that it does help in a sponsorship way. SS Greenlight Racing has signed a sponsor that'll be on the hood of the 14 for Garrett Smithley the remainder of this season. It's some company called Thermotech Partners. Thermotech's going to be on the hood the final 6 races of the year starting today as we air live at Kansas Speedway. The company's in a leader of what they call thermochromatic innovation, or more simply put, color changing tech. So they could get some really cool paint jobs, I guess. Could be worse. I'd be interested to see how free they get. How's that when it comes to putting paint schemes on the car? And I get it. They're mostly wraps now. A lot of stuff you can do with a wrap. And let's talk the truck series here real quick before we take a break. And we'll wrap up the whole NASCAR situation here. And talk Stuart Friesen. Stuart Friesen is, of course, with the Craftsman Truck Series team Hallmark Friesen Racing, but he got injured seriously back in July in a dirt modified crash when he was racing kind of a one-off thing on a Monday night in Quebec. Well, he suffered a fractured right leg and at least 2 fractures to his pelvis, several other injuries, cracked ribs and such. He's still recovering, but he actually felt well enough to be at New Hampshire Motor Speedway last weekend. Fox Sports caught up with him and talked to him for a little bit. His recovery is still in the very early stages, he said, but in his interview, he said, quote, "It's good. I'm at least mobile enough to be here. It's only 4 hours from home, so it's great to be back and see all these guys. Not necessarily on our team even, but the people that I've met in the last 10 years doing this. It's good to see everybody in the garage. So many people have reached out, said they were thinking about us. It's been so cool to have the support of the racing community. Very, very humbling knowing that many, many people are thinking of us and supporting us. People at Toyota have been awesome. Makes me feel proud to know that we're in a community like this that supports each other. And the 52 truck is in the playoffs. Remember that. They are battling for the team owner's title, which it's an uphill battle because they're a single truck operation up against some pretty big teams there. And there's Caden Honeycutt. Caden Honeycutt had made it to the playoffs even before he joined the team. Honeycutt, you might remember, got let go from one team earlier this year, and he latched on with Stuart Friesen and Hallmark Friesen Racing because of the injury to Stuart Friesen. Honeycutt sits 8th in points right now out of the 8 drivers. 52 truck sits 7th in the owner's points after the weekend at New Hampshire. So they've got work to do. But yeah, you kind of automatically root for a guy and a team like that because you know that the odds are kind of stacked against him in a lot of ways. And the fact that he was back at the track, it's good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Very, very happy to hear that he was there. Happy to hear about the progress that he's making and look forward to seeing what that team can do and whether or not Stuart Friesen's going to be able to get back in the truck like he really wants to. Silly season in IndyCar, Formula E. We got some IHRA news to talk about as well. All of that as we get into the final segment of CRN right after we take this little breather.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, final run to the finish here as we switch gears and talk about the IndyCar Series, where Dale Coyne Racing had, just as of last weekend, both seats available for the 2026 season. And then Tuesday morning, that changed. They not only figured out a driver, they announced a technical partnership with Andretti Global. This actually should benefit Dale Coyne Racing in a lot of ways because these guys should be able to help them out. We saw what the partnership between Team Penske and AJ Foyt Racing did for AJ Foyt. It brought them back to the point where they were regularly finishing in the top 10 in their races, specifically with Santino Ferrucci. This should help Dale Coyne Racing. Should, if they're listening. And what it also does is it allows them to put Indy Next champion Dennis Hauger into one of those rides. Hauger is a 22-year-old kid from Norway. In this year just ended, claimed 6 wins with 5 other podium finishes, 13 top 10 results in all 7 pole positions in a 14-race year where he cruised to the title in his rookie NXT season for Andretti Global. Dale Coyne said of the double announcement, quote, "This is a great opportunity for us here at DCR to bring on a talented driver and gain a strong technical partner at Andretti Global. Our thanks to Dan Tauris, who's the Andretti Global team partner, and his belief in our sport and his dedication to elevating Dennis to the top of the ladder." What this also does mean, yes, it gives Dennis Hauger a chance to get a feel in the IndyCar ranks. But if he does well and they do some personnel changes, Dennis Hauger's not going to be at Dale Coyne Racing long. I'm just letting you know. Andretti Global, meanwhile, has not only rolled out the red carpet for former Team Penske driver Will Power. Power's about to be reunited with his former Team Penske executive, Ron Rajewski. Ron was fired right after the Indy 500 scandal, along with a couple of other guys. TWG Motorsports, Andretti Global's parent company, has now hired him as their team principal on the IndyCar side. He officially will start that role in January. Will take that role over from Rob Edwards. Edwards has been moved into the role of Chief Performance Officer for the TWG Andretti Global side. The move reunites Rajewski and Power, who was, by the way, the managing director of Team Penske, but during his time also worked directly with the crew and the 12 car for Power and with Power. So pretty cool stuff. But there's a wrinkle to this. Power is under contract with Team Penske, and his contract technically reads that he's under contract with them through the end of the calendar year. In other words, December 31st. But since he wasn't re-signed by the team, his replacement, David Malukas, has already been signed. He used to ride last year with AJ Foyt Racing. Remember what I was saying just a moment ago, how he might find himself being pulled up to Andretti Dennis Hauger? Well, David Malukas was that. Malukas was a Team Penske driver, but they needed to give him a seat. They gave him the seat over at AJ Foyt Racing. And when they decided not to re-sign Will Power, they pulled David Malukas. Okay? He's been signed to a multi-year deal with Team Penske, and his merchandise is already available. If you go onto the Team Penske website and you look up the 12 car, you don't find Will Power stuff. Maybe on sale, clearance. But it's pretty much all David Malukas stuff now. And a whole lot of people within the IndyCar circles are now pressing the captain, Roger Penske, to allow Power to begin to work with Andretti Global now and not have to wait until January 1st of 2026 to do so. We'll see what happens on that front. As for Rajewski, part of his Penske contract stated that he could not work with a competing team within IndyCar for a specific period of time following his firing in May. He, along with team president Tim Cindric and IndyCar GM Kyle Moyer, were all fired in the wake of the scandal. It really has caused Roger Penske not just to fire them, but to take numerous steps to try and separate the race team from the IndyCar management side. And you say, why is that a problem? Well, for those of you that don't know, Roger Penske not only owns Team Penske, but through his Penske Entertainment subsidiary company, he owns the IndyCar Series and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A lot of people think that that's a conflict of interest. And to go back to the whole situation with Will Power, yeah, I mean, if you've already got David Malukas over there and he is already doing stuff for his new ride, go ahead and let Will Power go. You didn't want him anyway. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt you. It's not like he's hanging around the offices at Team Penske just waiting for his contract to run out over the next 3 months. Let him go. Let him go do his stuff. Dreyer and Reinbold Racing is a team that we don't talk about a whole lot, basically because they only run the Indy 500. And we certainly don't generally talk about it in September, late September, going into early October. But we will now, because they're making plans for next year's annual run at the Indy 500 and have hired on a driver. It's Fox broadcaster Jack Harvey. He's going to run their number 24 Chevrolet-powered racer in next year's edition of the famed race with sponsorship from financial institution Invest, INVST, if you're trying to look them up. Next year's run going to mark Dreyer and Reinbold's 27th attempt at the race, so they've got a pretty good guy, Jack Harvey. Harvey has never really burned up the track. I'll state that right up front, but Jack Harvey is a solid, consistent guy who is going to qualify your car, and if you got a good enough car, he can do a decent showing. Is Dreyer and Reinbold good enough to win? I hesitate on that. I'll just say it that way. Ed Carpenter Racing is in need of a new competition director. Their old one, Ed Cowden, has left. Eric Cowden, I should say. Eric has joined Arrow McLaren Racing. He's become their director of engineering, focused on the trackside support for the teams on site. And what this does is reunites him with Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan's now, of course, in the front office. He's kind of the de facto Arrow McLaren team principal. He and Kanaan worked together for many years and a number of teams, and they won the 2013 Indy 500 when they were running for the old KVSH racing operation. So they're back together. Like I said, Ed Carpenter needs a new competition director. If you got the resume, apply at Ed Carpenter Racing. Another bit of news that came down. This happened actually late last night. Pretty interesting. Driver test. They've got a test session coming up for IndyCar. A lot of the team's going to take part in it. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan is one of the teams that's going to take part in it. They're not choosing to go with any of their current drivers. They're instead going with ex-Haas F1 driver Mick Schumacher. Schumacher's been in a Mercedes reserve driver the last couple of seasons. In addition to driving for Alpine in the World Endurance Challenge Series, he's now going to get a chance to test on the Indianapolis road course in a couple of weeks. Schumacher's only 26, still pretty young. Swiss native said of this opportunity, quote, "A big thank you to the Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing team for giving me this opportunity. I'm very curious to understand the special features and characteristics of this race car, which is very different from the cars I'm used to driving, yet it's similar, and I remain very interested in gaining experience in the diverse world of motorsport. It's great to be able to see what it's all about and how difficult it is, since I hear a lot about how tough it is physically. It's not a secret I'm a big fan of single-seater racing after all, so this first IndyCar test will be an experience to treasure. I'm very much looking forward to driving a car where I can see my wheels again." Bobby Rahal said of the test, quote, "I followed Mick's career from afar as well as that of his father, so I thought of him, the thought of seeing him in one of our race cars, very exciting. I think it's going to be a great day for RLL and also for Mick as he gets his first experience in an IndyCar. Obviously, he's got a great deal of talent, knowing that we've got a pretty good setup, so the IMS road course should give him a good baseline to start from." I wondered when he was let go from Haas F1 in favor of the veterans a couple of years ago, Nico Hülkenberg specifically among them, into whether or not he would consider going to IndyCar. A lot of the F1 drivers tend to shy away from going to IndyCar because they have this inordinate fear of racing on ovals. And I say it's an inordinate fear because you can just as easily get in a crash on a road course. So I'll be interested to see whether or not, number one, Mick Schumacher performs well enough to really open the eyeballs of Bobby Rahal and David Letterman and Mr. Lanigan, all those people that are involved in the front offices there at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. But whether or not he feels comfortable enough to state, you know what, I might be willing to go ahead and do this on a full-time basis. Or whether he's more comfortable trying to get back into, and again, at 26, he's not an old guy by any stretch, but to be trying to get a second shot in Formula One, he's getting up there. So I don't know. A lot of it just kind of depends on exactly what Mick does, and I will be interested to see what he says after that happens. Now, we have talked about the 2026 IndyCar slate. We don't generally cover Indy Next, but I found it interesting that we could on this particular case because IndyCar finally revealed the 2026 slate of races for Indy NXT, Indy Next. And based upon this, I go back to what I was saying earlier. Don't be afraid to expand IndyCar because you just did. The season just ended for Indy Next was 14 races. The schedule that's up now, which you can see on CRN Live on YouTube if you happen to be there for my radio listeners, is now 17 races. But they're not going to be joining IndyCar at each and every track. So how's that going to work? Well, they're going to run doubleheader weekends. There are going to be 5 doubleheader weekends on the 2026 schedule to be exact in making up their 17 races. The weekends at our home track, Barber Motorsports Park here for CRN, plus Indy Road Course, Road America, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca to wrap up the season. They're all going to be doubleheader weekends. There are going to be 3 ovals on the schedule as well. They're going to run at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway, Nashville, and Milwaukee. Basic detail, they're going to kick off the season with IndyCar in St. Petersburg. They're going to skip Phoenix. Then they'll rejoin them, run again at Arlington, Texas before that first doubleheader weekend at Barber Motorsports Park, and then they'll back it up with that doubleheader weekend at Indy. Then they'll go to Detroit, the oval at Worldwide Tech Raceway. Then there's your next doubleheader, the Road America, followed by the doubleheader weekend at Mid-Ohio. Then on to Nashville, another oval. To Portland, Milwaukee, their final oval, and they'll wrap up that year, like I said, with a doubleheader and wrapping up their season at the same time, the 5th and the 6th, Labor Day weekend, with WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And then sad news from the world of IndyCar racing, unfortunately. The passing of the architect of Honda Performance Development, Robert Clark. Not a name you probably necessarily know, but you want to talk about a man who had a big, big say in what was going on in the world of IndyCar. He was a native of California, went to school at Texas Tech, studied architecture. From there, moved on to continuous studies at the University of Notre Dame. After graduation, stayed there, became a professor of art and industrial design, but after 5 years, decided he needed something new, left and moved into design of motorcycle components. That brought him to the attention of Honda. They picked him up. The rest of the 1980s was basically in motorcycle accessory and product design for the company. But when they started to have success in and then exited Formula One and decided they wanted to get into IndyCar, the CART IndyCar program side of things, he joined them and headed it up. And he had to do it from the ground up. American Honda lacked a factory of their own to either build, service, or support such a program, much less do all three. But yet they launched it in 1994. American Honda executive Tom Elliott said at the time, quote, basically, I was the direction and the money guy, and Robert was the hands-on guy. He did everything, from the teams to the employees, to the relationship at the time with CART, and to the rulemaking. He was involved in everything, hands-on. I was semi-hands-on, but nowhere near as much as Robert. He was really the heart of Honda Performance Development. Still needing an actual factory, Clark went back to his schooling in architecture and literally became the architect of what became Honda Performance Development in California. Eventually, they opened up building, servicing all the Honda IndyCar engines, since for a time, you might remember, this goes back to pre-2012, they were the only engine provider for IndyCar. No less than Bobby Rahal said of Clark, quote, he loved Honda more than anyone, and I don't know of anyone more loyal to Honda and to Honda's commitment to go IndyCar racing than Robert. There were times that, especially in the early years, where there were some disagreements with Robert, that he only had the one priority, and that was to do whatever he could to ensure that Honda was successful. Made him a popular guy at times, made him an unpopular guy at times, but first and foremost, his mindset was that of what was best for Honda. He was promoted to the president of the group in 2003, but retired in 2007. On his way out, however, he made sure to cement Honda's subsidiary Acura's entry into motorsports through the American Le Mans Series, bringing in groups like Andretti Green Racing from IndyCar to headline those efforts. Clark was married to his wife, Ann, who survives him along with their 2 sons, Chris and Mike, and their families. Last Saturday, it was revealed by the family that Clark had passed away due to what they termed as heart failure, simply. Architect of Honda Performance Development, Robert Clark, passing away at 75 years old. And I know Honda misses him. The IHRA has new leadership this year. They continue to expand out. They're working to get back to national prominence. For a long time, they just kind of disappeared under the weight of what was the NHRA. Well, they got new ownership and leadership in place, and the series has been on a buying spree. They're buying and revealing renovation plans for many of the facilities that they bought. Well, now the IHRA has announced that they have acquired IHRA Australia. Did you even know that that was a thing? It is, as it turns out. They're going to bring both the Australian and New Zealand events under one IHRA umbrella, putting all the rules as the same. IHRA officials state in their announcement that strengthening the ties between the U.S. and the Asia-Pacific region of drag racing is important. At this time, things are going to continue as normal. Down Under noted that the licensing, membership, and regulatory functions will remain in country. What this is going to do, however, is align the rules that separate the Australia-New Zealand IHRA that they've been running under with the rules that the U.S. IHRA has been running under. So it will allow the drivers from both regions to be recognized effectively wherever they go. Daryl Cuddle, the owner of the IHRA here in the U.S., said of the move, quote, bringing Australia and New Zealand fully under the IHRA family was an obvious move. Our commitment's backed by substantial investment to support clubs, teams, venues, and competitors throughout the region. I look forward to visiting soon and share our detailed vision for the future of drag racing in the Asia Pacific. And that brings us to Formula E, where silly season is in full force. Lola Yamaha ABT team didn't have a great year in 2024-25, but the team isn't blaming the drivers. The drivers are going to be back for the upcoming year. Zane Maloney is going to be heading into a second year with the Formula E team. Veteran Lucas DeGrassi is his partner and mentor. Pairing claimed 4 points finishes with the best finish of second. That was DeGrassi. He pulled it off at the Miami E-Prix. Over at Andretti Formula E, they have taken a driver from the Formula One ranks. His name, Felipe Drugovich. They've paired him with Season 9 champion Jake Dennis for the upcoming 12th season of the All-Electric Series. Drugovich won the 2022 Formula 2 title. He's been in and out of Formula E and Formula One, getting one-off rides and tests. Since that 2022 title, he's been a reserve driver for Aston Martin in F1. He's taken part in several practice sessions as Formula One and the FIA rules allow. He's also run some World Endurance Challenge events, including the 24 Hours Le Mans, also a race in IMSA for Cadillac. He raced in Berlin E-Prix this year, and the year just ended, scored points in his Formula E debut, so I guess they felt that was good enough for him to join Formula E. And finally, over at Jaguar TCS, they've got a new team principal. It is Ian James. He has been named officially as of October the 1st, so a couple more days. He's going to be the man to lead the team into the fourth generation. He's a Formula E veteran, helping out teams like Mercedes and McLaren win 4 team titles during his time there. See whether or not he helps out Jaguar. Keep your thoughts and your prayers for Coach Matt as Tuesday he begins radiation treatment for the cancer that he is dealing with. We hope nothing but the best for him and hope to hear from him coming up this weekend. I'll be doing Cross Flag solo this week. Hope you join me then.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.